how it felt to me. And what happened at that point in time, I'll always remember. There was a couple of things. First of all, I was just chuckling to myself that I'd gone in for this reading and I got like the Zoom patrol for me. I mean, what does this mean? This means absolutely nothing and can't mean anything. And so I said to Jan, hold on. He had a message for me, and the message was so short that he could give it to me in one sentence. Are you ready for it? And she said, yes, what is it? And so she had a cassette, which of course we had like, it was 5 minutes on it. And she took that, and now stop the show, because what I heard and what he said were two different things. First of all, who had ever heard of Cryon? No one. That was the first time I thought I had heard it. Now, there's more to the story, and I'll tell you in a moment. But what I heard, what's the closest thing that I, as a guy who was not in metaphysics or anything else, would have heard when somebody said Cryon? And perhaps you know, I clearly heard Kryon. Now, Kryon is a rust preventative spray paint. Do you guys know? I think it's still available today.
It is still available.
Yeah, you can still get it today.
You can still get Kryon
so
today.
What I had heard was that spray paint wants to talk to me. And that made total sense coming from a New Age guy. You know, because here it is again, you're all nuts. And so I said to Jan, I said, are you ready? Are you ready? She said, what? I said, spray paint wants to get a hold of me. And she said, what? That can't be right. So what happened later is, of course, she listened to the cassette, and she said it wasn't Kryon, Lee, it was Cryon. And I said, to me, I was like, oh, that's different. You know, so what does that mean? It could have been Mother Mary. That I would have known. But Cryon? So it stayed there for some time. Now, you have to know that a little bit more about my personality that I want to disclose. I like details to be correct. And I'm not necessarily a neat person at home, but I like everything to make sense in my life. Now, that's part of perhaps why I channel the way I do. Perhaps I was picked for that reason. Well, what I mean is this. I'll give you an example. I was doing my bank statement, and I was trying to reconcile it. You know how you do when the bank statement comes, and so you reconcile it and make sure it's right and everything, and I couldn't. It was 2 cents off. Now, most of us would go, that's close enough. Let's go to dinner. Let's go watch TV. Let's do it. But not me. I'm going, I must have made a mistake. And so I spent hours trying to find the 2 cents. And here's why. Because there's an axiom. The bank is always correct. But it drove me nuts. I didn't sleep that night, and I had an appointment with a banker. And in the morning, I went to the bank as soon as it opened with my statement in my hand, and I said, please show me what I'm doing wrong. So the guys came over, they did their calculations, they looked and said, oh, Mr. Carroll, we're so sorry. There was a mistake in your statement. So do you see what I went through? So I made, a decision that the bank was always right, and this caused me this. So that's my personality. So here's what went on in my brain, and I think Spirit knew that this would go on in my brain, is that I said to myself over a period of time, Cryon. I think I've heard that name before. And there's only one place that I could ever have heard it before, and that's with the crazy guy who sat in front of me for an hour that I paid no attention to. I have to know. Did he mention Cryon? Now, was I interested in New Age? No. I was interested in the bank statement kind of a thing. I wanted to know if he said it or he didn't say it. Well, I've heard it before. It was driving me crazy. So when Jan wasn't looking, now, do you get that part? I did not want Jan to know I was interested. I didn't want to get her excited or anything else. So when she went to the store, I know where she stashes her tapes, her cassettes. I went to that cupboard, I got the tape, and I went there and I listened to, I went right back to where Frank Alpert was. I found that tape was right on top, by the way, so it wasn't that hard to find. So I listened to it, and I listened and listened and listened. There was again, wah, 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 all that gobbledygook, all that stuff that I didn't hear before. And then at about 46 minutes into it, he said these words, "There's a magnetic master named Cryon trying to get a hold of you." Those were the exact words that the other guy had said. The guy I liked, the psychic, for the 5-minute reading. The exact words. And that set me off, folks. I am logical to a T. My engineering background, we study circuits and electronics. Things work a certain way, and that's just the way they work. This didn't make sense. Here's the statement I'm going to say to you. How can two men, 40 years apart in age, who didn't know each other, in two separate places on the planet they lived, come together and give the exact same statement to me? How is that possible? It isn't. It just isn't. So right away, I had, again, the bank statement problem. It can't be. Logic says that's not possible, and yet I have them both on tape. You can see where this is going, perhaps. So I did something. And this is where it gets good. And this is where we can start asking the questions. What I did, and I always remember this day, I made a decision and I gave intent, and that's this. Could it possibly be, because of this impossible logic that I was looking at, could it be that there was something called Cryon that had a message for me? Now, a good religious boy. That's what I had as a kid, growing up teenager, went to church. I believe in God. I believe in angels. I know that there are some divine supernatural things, miracles. I believe that. So in that way, I said, okay, it's okay. I got an angel who wants to talk to me. And these crazy guys picked it up somehow. So what I said is this: I'm going to get a chair. And where's Jan? She's not there. Because I did this at work. I had in my office, shut the door, I locked it, and I put a chair in the middle of the floor, and I said to whoever's listening, "Dear Kryon," they said, "Now is the time. If you got anything to say, if this is real or not, I'm going to sit in the chair, say it. You got one chance." That's called putting out a fleece, isn't it? That's like, show me or else. That's what I did. Now, what were my expectations? This is important because we live our lives a certain way, and if you've ever had a situation where you weren't sure that what was going on or wasn't going on, and you had messages from beyond or something, don't be afraid to do this in your own way, to say, I don't believe in it, but if it's there, show me. And that's opening the door to Spirit. Spirit is asking for this. Spirit says, you're a believer or no believer. We want to show you some stuff. And they did. I sat down in that chair, having made that statement, expecting nothing, but allowing it to be because I had gave intent. I gave intent for it. If you're there, show me. I sat in the chair, and instantly I started weeping. I wept. And there's no reason for this engineer in his office to cry. There's none at all. There was no ramp up to it. I didn't read a sad story. I didn't read scripture. I wasn't praying. And I wept. And my first reaction was anger. This is crazy, but I wanted to tell you, you don't always understand what's going on. That's the second thing I want to tell you. You may get a reaction. Pay attention to what it is, because it has to filter through that hard shell of yours that says, I believe it or I don't believe it, or here's what I expect or I don't expect. So what I got was something I didn't expect. I got right out of that chair. I actually looked at the chair and said, don't ever do that again. I mean, so I gave credibility. There was a cause and effect. I couldn't leave it alone. There was a cause and effect. Why did I weep? Why did I cry? What did I feel that would create such a thing? So I did it again. This time I said, look, I'm going to cry when I want to. Don't make me cry. Men don't want to have them. In general, you're in the theater and something happens and all the women are crying around you and you feel a tear coming, you go, don't do that, don't do that. Men will cry when they want to cry, not when they say, you cry because I made a story for you to cry. So what happened next was this. I tempered it so I'd figure it out. That's how controlling I am. I wanted to know what was happening with Cryon, the paint spray. I sat in the chair again and I felt the most incredible peace and love I had ever felt in my life, and I began weeping again, but this time I knew why. Because something was going on, and I liked it. Mm-hmm. Now, that's only the second time I sat in the chair. I liked it.
So, did you actually... So now you are starting to be confident that there's something there, right?
No.
Oh.
I had to sit in the chair many times. I had to do it alone. I had to feel like there was a continuous cause and effect. It wasn't what I had for breakfast.
And so, but when did you start hearing the messages? Like, you felt the love first, is that right?
Yes, I did.
When did you start hearing the messages?
Only after I was comfortable enough to say, when I sit in the chair, I'm in touch with Cryon, which I now am calling Cryon instead of spray paint. I'll tell you the other problem, it felt feminine. And a guy's name, Cryon, which is like a name from space, who's heard of this? It felt feminine. I want to say, who are you? I mean, are you tricking me? Who is this? And I realized finally that angels don't have a gender. We paint them with skin and wings and make them women, because they're a beautiful, but it's not correct.
And
They're
when
genderless.
did you feel you could tell Jan Tober, who was instrumental in all of this?
A long time later.
Yeah.
First of all, I didn't want to join the crazy group. Yes. But I realized I was. And so it happened very gradually, very gracefully, and I told her, and there was no explosion of emotions. There wasn't anything else. She just looked at me and she said, I knew it when I married you.
Interesting.
She was simply waiting for what took place.
And I guess her reaction shows a very strong maturity and love for you to come along in your own way.
And then what happened next was Cryon began to give me messages, and they were not anything. I started writing down these things, and I started channeling on paper, like journaling. And they were Cryon's messages, and I showed them to her, and she said, well, maybe we ought to do a book, and all like that. And so I went to the New Age store, and I looked around, and I said, everybody's a channeler. Why would anybody pay attention to me? Why should I do more of the same that everybody has? Here was that stubbornness again. But there was a metaphysical group in San Diego, California, where we were living, and it was a high-end. They called their temple group, and they were people who knew or not knew if you were faking it or not faking it, and they'd get together a couple times a month or something, and Jan says, why don't you channel out loud for the first time to them?
Yeah.
And I thought, yeah, that's good, because they'll tell me to keep my day job.
And then what happened?
I did. I sweated bullets. I think I changed my shirt twice before I even, it was a tough thing for me. That particular channel, by the way, ended up in book 1, The End Times. And at the end of that short channel, I even forget what was, that was the first time I channeled out loud, and I channeled to them. And at the end of it, they went around telling me. First of it was their leader, Barbara. And she looked at me and she says, this is what we've been waiting for.
Oh, boy.
So I knew there was something more coming, and there was. And this was the beginning, I would say, of everything that you all know happened subsequent. In 1993, we started in 89. That's when that first channel was. That's when Cryon came to me. And by 1993, we had book 1. By 1994, we had book 2, and it went from there. That is the story from Cryon. I know we're almost out of time. So we're out of town. I moved. Not very far. So just to say this, Spirit knows us. so well. And if you give permission to know more, even if you're not interested, perhaps, in what might happen specifically, Spirit lets this happen. And it's through intent, but it was tailor-made for this stubborn guy. That whole scenario was tailor-made for this stubborn guy. And this, I know, is how Spirit works, and that's how love works.
I think the beautiful part of that story, Lee, is that the first thing you got was not a message. You got emotion of love.
Yes.
That was addictive.
That convinced me. There was no message at all.
Yes.
It was just love.
Yeah.
That's all there was.
And basically it was a safe place for you to go to.
The only thing that made it safe, I felt the love of God that I'd felt in church, but 10 times. Anything there. It was totally safe.
Yeah.
I knew it. Somehow I knew that.
And I think that's why everyone joining in can feel that love from Cryon.
Yeah.
You're now the conduit for that, because you have spent your life dedicating yourself to stepping aside to let the purity of the message come in, which is why, I mean, this is now another story as to why it took you so long to master the art of channeling, because you said to Cryon, I want to be present and recall everything. I don't want you ever doing anything out of my mouth or my body that I don't know
That's why
what
I'm a present channel. That's why I don't walk around. That's another story. I think we've had that with Marilyn. By the way, Joy, thank you for coming. I didn't let you talk much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for letting me.
Oh, it's just, this is our 100th, and I wanted you all here.
I'm just so
Special.
honored to be here with both of you, and you know, I know people feel that energy that you're talking about of Cryon when they're on Healing Wednesday. I know that they feel it when they're in a live event with you.
Well, we have more stories that are like that. First time we went to UNL, maybe you'd like another program like this, and we'll do that. But this is just thanks for 100 programs. For those of you who are members, it means a lot to us.
Wonderful. Well, thank you everyone for participating in our episode 100. We're now going to take a 10-minute break, and we'll be back here for the Circle of 12.